Hello, this is Pete, call sign K7PP. We're located in Western Washington State. We're looking at some older vintage equipment that are part of my collection. And today we're going to be looking at one in particular. This one is the Heathkit DX100. It's an amplitude modulated or AM transmitter, kind of like you would find on the AM broadcast band that's currently in service. However, this one operates AM in designated amateur radio bands ranging from 160 meters to 10 meters. This transmitter is actually a very powerful unit. It will actually put out somewhere in the neighborhood of 120 watts of power on AM on all of these bands. A little bit more on CW or Morse code. But we're going to take a few minutes to see actually how it's tuned up. One of the reasons we're doing this is not so much that there's a terrible need for people to understand radio, but some of my fellow amateur operators haven't laid hands upon a tube rig. And you know what? Tube rigs are starting to become more and more desirable. Many of us are interested in experiencing the nostalgia of a half a century ago. And some of these radios are still functional, and some of them are able to be made to function by a restoration process. This unit's been cleaned, restored, tested, many of the components replaced, and put in first-class condition, just as good as the day it was born. And it does put out 120 watts of power, and we're going to see how we can achieve that 120 watts of power by alignment and tuning. This radio is equipped with a device called a VFO. It's typically called a variable frequency oscillator. It's the center knob. And this device allows you to basically select the frequency that you want to operate by just selecting it on the dial. It's an analog dial, analog radio, but fairly stable and fairly accurate. Once the frequency is selected, that frequency is generated by the VFO or the frequency determining device, and then it is passed through the different stages, the tube stages inside. Finally, the power is amplified and the modulation or voice is applied to the radio signal, and all of that is applied to the antenna connector and subsequently to the antenna, where other stations listening to the frequency I have selected are able to hear me. So let's take a quick check at the controls. The controls are laid out fairly straightforwardly. The control right underneath the meter is actually a meter switch, and with that meter switch you can select different functions to physically switch to that allows you to look at the operation of a particular stage in the transmitter. For instance, we have a driver stage, grid drive for the power amplifier, plate current for the power amplifier, the high voltage, and the actual modulation, which is represented by the cathode current of the modulator tubes, displayed in milliamps or thousandths of an amp. So starting with the controls, a brief description. Our audio control controls the amount of modulation from the microphone directly through to the last stage that actually superimposes the modulation on the radio signal. Power switch. The VFO switch, I can generate signals by selecting different fixed crystals inside the unit. This allows me to go right back immediately to a frequency that I may frequent often, and the crystals are very, very stable and require no special checking or calibration to actually arrive at the frequency you want. The band switch. There are several bands that you can operate: 160 meters, 80, 40, 20, 15, 10, and a remnants of days gone by when 11 meters was an amateur band is still included on this unit. The 11 meters has been disabled in this transmitter, and all the coils and components associated with it have been removed. So it no longer operates on 11 meters. The loading controls. The loading controls are a two-tier device. There is the concentric knob that controls the course loading, which means that you're actually adjusting the ability of the unit to couple power out of the transmitter, out of the power amplifier, and match it to the antenna so it is sufficiently transferred to the antenna, and a fine adjustment for precise loading to the antenna. The plate power is the actual power that is applied to the power amplifier plate circuit, or the high voltage, and that can be controlled with this switch. It also can be controlled by using the microphone and by pushing in the push-to-talk bar. This will also key the high voltage and place the transmitter on the air. Mode switch, Morse code, or AM radio telephone. The controls next to the frequency selection are the driver, which is a device that allows me to tune the control grids of the power amplifier, which amplifies the power and obtains our 120 watts for us. The amplifier adjustment is the plate tuning, or the output tuning of the power amplifier, and allows me to make the tubes operate efficiently, and enables them to transfer their power to the antenna circuit, which is controlled by the loading. So in order to make all this happen, we'll actually go through it. And again, I'm doing this so that those of you who are probably experienced but may have not experienced tubes before might find this a shortcut to help you see the procedure is just as easy as can be once you got it down. The driver stage is indicated on the meter, and we'll get up close so that you can take a look at it. If I turn on the CW switch, this activates the driver stage, and we can see that it's active when I turn the switch on. If I go to the grid stage, the grid may or may not be tuned, and that's what we're going to do, is we're going to check and see if it is. I'm going to turn on CW, and I do have quite a reading there. The book says 5 milliamps, which is basically straight up and down is what is called for. But before we go any further, we peak the grid and make sure that it's peaked to maximum condition. And once we're aware of that, then we can back the driver control down until the grid reads the 5 milliamps as required. The next circuit would be, or the next control would be the plate circuit. There's nothing on there right now because we haven't turned on the high voltage. Once we do turn on the high voltage, we're going to see a very large amount of current flowing. And we've only got 2 or 3 seconds to quickly, and I mean quickly, adjust the amplifier plate tank circuit to resonate the tubes with the resonant plate tank circuit. Once that happens, the unit will start to efficiently couple power. But as I say, if you're out of resonance, this is a bad thing, and the power consumed by the tubes not being coupled to the antenna gets dissipated someplace, and that someplace is inside the vacuum tube itself, and eventually it'll destroy the tube unless this situation is remedied by finding the resonance. Resonance is indicated on the meter by a dip in current, and maximum current for the AM mode is around 240 milliamps for 120 watts output. Also, the plate voltage we can check and make sure that our plate voltage is correct, and I'm going to do that very briefly and very quickly. On, off. I showed about 800 volts of high voltage. I'm going back to plate, and I'm going to turn on the plate again, and I'm going to quickly dip the plate tank circuit. And I don't really need to do that very much because it's already very close to being dipped. And as you can see, as I tune through resonance, I can tune out of resonance, in resonance, out of resonance, and in resonance. So I've essentially peaked the grid circuit and dipped the plate circuit. Now I'm going to increase the coupling, but before I do that, I turn off the plate, because when I throw the coupling coarse switch, I'm actually, if I had the power on, would be switching many amps of radio frequency current. Very bad on switch contacts, so I do it with the power off. Makes the switches last a long time. Check the current again, and you'll notice it's a little higher. It's now 200 milliamps. That's great. I can adjust the coarse coupling up a little bit more, couple a little more power out, and we're right at 240 milliamps where we're supposed to be. I'm going to dip the plate tank circuit again, which brings it in a little bit lower, and I'm going to use the fine coupling to bring up the current a little bit more. I'm tuning the red knob here, which brings up the coupling, and I'm right at 240 milliamps of current. Now, just to make sure that everything's legal and so forth, I'm going to switch to phone mode that I'm tuned up. I'm going to apply a little bit of audio and speak into the microphone. This is K7PP for ID. And now I've satisfied the FCC requirements for identifying my station. Actually, I identified before I started this procedure, so I've just identified again, just in case we go over the allotted time between identifications. So having satisfied that, that completes the tune-up of the DX100. It uses two 6146 alpha beam power pentodes, and it also uses two 1625s, which are a World War II vintage beam power pentode, and sundry other different tubes for rectifying the AC current coming out of the lines to usable DC current to run the tubes. So there you have it. Find a DX100, get her all cleaned up, repair the bad parts, and you too can join the AAM crowd. It's loads of fun, and it's a real hoot to go back in time. Thanks for looking. I hope you found this valuable. This is Pete, K7PP, signing off and clear.